Green Fox was due to join us this morning, and those of you who have been at conference before will have experienced Ben Dodds and the great work that he's trying to do to establish the electric car plus across all of the rural areas. And we don't have one yet in Engine Walford. We are hoping to at some point, but sadly, due to a family issue, he's not able to be with us today. But I can assure you the work that he's doing has moved on since we last met. That first of the car clubs is up and running. We are invited at some point to go along and see that in action. This is where we try and reduce people's car usage by those that have 2 cars or more at the moment, and have only need for one, particularly with home working, where there is the odd occasion where they need a car rather than actually have a taxi or a bus. They can join the Green Fox Electric Car Club. It's a very exciting initiative, and so one is already up and running. He was going to talk to us about that today, but he's unable to make it. But we will enclose details of that in a minute, and as I say, there's an open invitation for us to go and view that at some point. So hopefully bring him back next year to expand on that further. Moving on to back to our core business, and that's what Hindley Boswell's been up to, and that's climate change and biodiversity emergency declaration. So on behalf of us being an executive member, I declared a climate emergency immediately following the 2019 election and just recently the biodiversity. It was important to do it in 2 stages because it's such a large topic, and indeed the climate change strategy is now actually being through council, so it's a public documentation. It takes us between 2024 to 2028, in line with all our other policy documents. It's set into 6 specific themes to make it clear and easy to understand. 1 being biodiversity, 2 buildings and land, 3 community, 4 economy, 5 travel, and 6 waste and pollution. It sets out the vision. I'm not going to go through that, but in biodiversity, we're looking over the next 2 years, we look to increase the tree canopy in the borough. There's been a number of tree schemes, I know many of you have taken part in that with the free tree schemes that you had, massively supported, of course, by Hinton and Rugby Building Society. They were here today too. So increased biodiversity on our property and our green infrastructure, and through the planning service ensure the delivery of at least 10% biodiversity, again, on all qualifying planning applications which are committed. We're very much looking to complete the local plan. Obviously, climate change and biodiversity sits at the heart of all of that and what we're doing. I'm pleased to report that every member of the council, both officer and councillor, supports what we're trying to do in trying to make the environment better for everybody that lives in the borough, and we're making good progress as a result. The buildings and land over the next 2 years, as I say, we'll look towards what we can implement in the local plan, and what we can implement through the planning process, through planning applications, both small and large. We've looked very hard, and we continue to look hard at the council's emissions and what we can achieve and can't, having been realistic about this and using common sense. We've challenged every single officer who's involved before the council, and they've been up to the challenge. To look at how they worked in the past, how they're going to work in the future, and what changes can be made in order to make a difference. One of our biggest polluters is obviously the buildings that we occupy. There's the hub and the leisure centre, as well as probably out on the road. Our latest emission is the bin. They do a wonderful job, turn out some weathers, but right now we've moved to biodiesel, which has a significant difference to the climate that the waste vehicles are operating in. Moving to electric waste vehicles is not practical at this moment in time. Early adopters of new technology usually find out that they wish they hadn't, but nevertheless it's a huge ask for the Borough Council to move to all electric fleets, they're 3 times more expensive, and you need the infrastructure to charge such large vehicles. There are also issues of health and safety too, because I recently had a tour of one of these vehicles and was able to ask Dennis, that's Dennis the Pinchel, not Dennis the man, what the issues would be for a rural parish in terms of electric vehicles. And one thing that's perfectly sensible is they have to empty, you can imagine when it comes moving and further away from Hinkley. Sometimes they have to chip 2 or 3 times a day. And to do that, they have to obviously go to the tipping site, which often involves a trip on the motorway. And a really heavy, full, large waste vehicle cannot operate at a very fast speed on the M69, so it will be dangerous or take a long time using that road. So it will come, but right now we've done all we can to adapt the vehicles we've got to have a lesser impact whilst providing that service. Community will build capacity and the networks and community schools and businesses, and today is a great example of how we work with all our partners to make a difference, and everybody's doing their individual things. We just heard from the school, and all the schools across the borough are doing similar things. We've got climate champions, and they're very much doing that kind of work. We don't make promises that we can't keep to, and we actually have reporting that makes sense. So we have a benchmark that we set so that year on year we can actually monitor our progress and be honest with ourselves as to where we're going. And I've been absolutely brutally honest with you for all of my time in that sometimes we will exceed our expectations, sometimes we'll just play till out, sometimes we actually won't achieve what we wanted to achieve for whatever reason. But it's best to be honest, it's best to set your stall out and try and achieve goals. Accepting the fact that not always you can get towards that. Economy is obviously very important. In fact, the tourism is a brilliant example of how the economy is affected in Hinkley and Bosworth, the wedding venue as a whole. They also have conferences here too, and training exercises for companies both near and far. And eventually they travel outside the borough to events. So very much a big employer and very much an important employer to the borough. So this always has an impact on the economy. Well, I wanted to look at what we've achieved because it's very easy to approach a subject and think, have we really achieved anything? So I wanted to have a look at what we achieved. So I actually tasked everybody that's worked on the climate, including the climate member working group, to actually come up with their key achievements. And that is massive. It's a number of pages long, so to get somewhere, and it highlights everything that we've been doing. Anyway, and it is huge, and we'll make a way of that at the conference, but it lists everything that we've been doing and what everything we've achieved. And I think it's 2 or 3 pages, 4 pages long, so please take a look at that when you get the opportunity to do so. This is the start of the journey, obviously, and we're continually working on our climate change strategy and delivering what's in the strategy. And every day we're able to do something different and to change the way we work in order to do that. You're very much helping us, our partners, to achieve this. I know Hinkley Rugby Builders Society are doing a lot with it, and we have our climate change business forum as well, and yours here somewhere. It's probably still on the store. But he's going to get that underway again very shortly, which is great. And we've also had a survey out. I'm not sure if you've completed that. I'm going to be circulating, giving you the opportunity to fill that in. I also wanted to feature what we've been doing from a climate perspective, not from a talk or from a piece of paper or a document, but by going out into a community and having a look at what's been achieved. And my first stop for that was always going to be, and you'll understand why, a huge, massive climate change advocate, and that's Jim from Sporting Destin. So, Jim, can I ask you to join me? Because we're going to give you an opportunity to talk about your climate endeavours with us, a journey that I've followed really for a long time, as you know. And then we've got a video, and again, you haven't seen. So you'll be first to see it is the video.
Let Jim talk first about the sporting desk, and then I'll tell you about the church.
Well, I mean, the focus of this Desk for Free Church, I mean, it does quite a lot of sporting desk, and we're now carbon negative with the use of electricity at sporting desk. We use 41, we generate 41 megawatt hours a year, but we only consume 35 for floodlighting and big heaters and such like. So that's something we've done, but the focus of this event is Desk for Free Church and its students.
Okay. It's only not in school. Yeah. Desk for Free Church, like lots of churches and chapels around the county, we're very much a social hub within our community, and we provide lots of facilities. We're part of the Ward Home schemes, we run a cafe, we run a food bank. So we're very much there for the community, which is very important in the room. We also are advocates for change, and we see that very much as our role as part of the church, and climate change is one of our things which we think is a huge responsibility for us to be talking about. Hence we run a climate change group called Green Light Green Planet, which I've just been talking to your climate change officer today, is how we can work together. We also work with local schools on that. We have a play group and we work with them. They've got an insect hotel and all sorts of things in the garden, and they're planting things, which is lovely with the very little ones to see that happening. But of course, we often work in old and drafty buildings, so we started with an energy survey to see what we could do. So we put insulation everywhere we can think of, which is interesting in an old building, and made sure we dealt with as many drafts as we can deal with. Obviously, windows from 1890, which in a conservation area, we just have to put up with. But it's also a matter of, in these days, with high costs, trying to keep our costs down so we can continue to provide all the facilities we do. So we were incredibly grateful to get a grant to put solar panels on our south-facing roof. Unfortunately, in the conservation area, nobody can see them, so we were allowed to do it. So that's been absolutely brilliant, and will really help us to continue to offer all the things that we do. Martin came out to make a video, which I haven't seen, which I just want to have a look at. So I think that tells the rest of the story.
I think that means press the play button.
Right.
We're heading up bringing a footpath up to the Desk for Free Church. It's not the easiest place to climb, but it is the joy in the crowd when you get there. So I know many people have over the years advised this building, and it creates such a warm and friendly atmosphere for people. It's not just a church, it has the school group, which is really important. It has many community events, and it also now has a food bank, and there's the Green Light Green Planet. So now we've found the Minister about to enter, let's see what welcome awaits us. We were right, on one of the place, and it's really warm places already. I felt the heat all through the door. But there's a good reason for that, because today it's operating as a warm space. It's one of the many functions of the building. So how long has the warm space been operating for, and how successful has that been?
Yeah, we've been operating for about 4 years now. As a community cafe, and we go every Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday mornings. We usually have about half a dozen, maybe 8 or 9 people in. This morning we've got a group of walkers that are coming in as well, for the next 10 minutes. Yeah, we've got a group.
The school group is operating there as well upstairs, and that makes use of the space heating due to the solar panels, which is partially through the things around our ground. So
it's absolutely brilliant, because the playground room upstairs is totally biometric, with big birds and fans at the top of it, keeping them down to the children. And it's very, very popular playground. We've got a couple of American communities. It's the only playground operating in the every morning and 3 afternoons. It's very much in demand, and it will really help us keep their trees down, which is what we're very concerned about, making sure everything's accessible to our community.
Having to do it meeting, you're really confident about the emergency in the public and getting massively involved with sporting investment. I followed the journey story on that, and since you started, really, and it's great to hear everything you do. Today, we're at the Free Church, which is obviously where Green Lights Green Planet originated from, and also to secure future outfit funding for the solar panels. Without going into technical details, because I know you know far more about it than many others, what I'm interested in is actually the grant that was required for that with that funding. Your statistics that you worked out broadly say that in 9.5 years the investment will be back. That, in the grand scale of the universe, isn't a long time, 9.5 years to get the investment back. So just wanted to touch upon that.
And of course, they will go on working beyond the 9.5 years, probably for at least 30 or 40 years. Will benefit the church, will benefit keeping the big towns of this place all on an ongoing basis.
A fantastic country to expect to allow you to go into the South because the situation obviously feels like it's required to do that delivery today. But the church is it's about services, it's about community use, and it's about energy efficiency, and it's about the part impacting and trying to reduce your carbon footprint and make the buildings better, more friendly, and more comfortable to use. Whilst at the same time reducing costs and having a lesser impact on the environment. So it looks like win. And it's wonderful what you do, it's really what and I look forward to hearing what we get through with this, and it is really important. It's very important to do. Thank you. Wow, so much happens at Desmond Free Church, and indeed supporting Desmond too, both health and fitness. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot because we're running a few minutes ahead of time, so just see if anybody, I know Jim is particularly passionate about this and got a wealth of knowledge, so if anybody has got a question they'd like to pose now, I'll seek Jim's support in answering that question if I can't answer it. But, thank you. It is a sad fact now that the church is a wall space, as well as a food bank, as well as the playgroup, as well as the services, as well as trying to reduce its carbon footprint, as well as keeping the bills down and the doors open. I mean, it's the challenges we all face, isn't it? Day to day, the challenges we all face in our own homes too, and keeping our own bills down and doing our bit for the climate emergency that's actually happening right here, right now. So thank you for what you do. All of the groups benefit from it. You're just tirelessly what you're working at there. So it's good of you to come along together. It's good of you to invite me along and I think a perfect opportunity where I can see all those different aspects of what you do, all at the same time working in conjunction with one another. So everyone that was there at the time, looks like people here today, were having a great time and benefited. Not only from your hospitality, drinks and you can see the strength of that being made there, but more importantly, it's the mental well-being and just having someone to talk to. Little friendship groups that get together and have those talk to each other, and also being able to seek help and advice and support when needed. So it doesn't go unnoticed, which is obviously when you finish for it. I'm also pleased today because there's a massive initiative, and it really is huge, between Leicestershire and Brooklyn Local Nature Recovery Strategy from LCC. I'm involved in this in a number of ways, not just as a board councillor, being obviously the executive, but I'm also on the Charming Forest group, So the John Forest group, and it makes absolute sense. It's being launched actually today, so it's around today, so it's a good time for me to invite James O'Brien and Paul to come up and talk to us about the Leicestershire Rutland local nature. So welcome to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James O'Brien. I manage the environment team at Leicestershire County Council, but I'm also chair of the Local Nature Recovery Strategy Steering Group. And myself and Paul will give you a very quick introduction to what's happening to develop a local nature recovery strategy across the Leicestershire, Leicester City and Rutland. So, in broad terms, what we want to cover today is a brief introduction as to what local nature recovery strategies are, and what we're doing to develop the strategy, and how you guys can get involved in co-creating that strategy with us. So, a bit of kind of the technical background. So, a local nature recovery strategy is a new mandatory system of what we call spatial strategies, and these will map the most valuable existing areas for nature, establish what the nature priorities are for the area, map proposals or actions for specific actions that will drive nature's recovery and what called wider environmental benefits. And this is a new requirement, a new mandatory strategy duty placed on local government that was introduced as part of the Environment Act 2021. And our strategy area, as I said, covers Leicestershire County, Leicester City and Rutland. And you can see an example of a draft map we're producing at the moment, identifying what the core habitats are across the area. As you can see, it's mainly mixed agricultural land. We mix up about 80% of the area. We've got some city urban areas, woodland forest, and various forms of wetlands, rivers, canals, lakes, and so on. And there'll be a chance to get involved and say later on, which Paul will talk about, to look at the detail that the maps are producing and influence what happens in the future. As I said, this is part of government policy, the Environment Act 2021, and there are 48 local nature recovery strategies across England. So this just covers England, and you can see we're number 19 in the middle. So I think we've got 8 neighbouring areas that we work with as well. And I'll put that in a moment, but it's not just by looking at what happens in Leicestershire, as a city of Rutland. We need to work on a larger landscape scale with neighbouring authorities as well. As I mentioned, the Environment Act is where this has come from, and it's one of a suite of policies and initiatives that are within the Act to try and achieve the various environmental targets that the government has set around air, biodiversity, water and waste. There's also contributing to achieving what's called the 30 by 30 commitment, which is an international commitment to achieve 40% of nature protected by 2030. That's an international commitment that I think about 190 or so governments have signed up to across the world. The work comes with regulations and guidance that are quite prescriptive in how we need to and how we should develop the strategy. So as you can see on the slide there, it sets out what the overall purpose of what we're trying to do. As I said before, it's like, what are the nature's priorities, where are the most valuable areas for nature already, map specific proposals, actions, how can we protect, enhance, connect, improve those areas for nature and for wider environmental benefits. So how can we also address the climate crisis as well as the nature crisis at the same time? How can we help reduce flooding? How can we improve air pollution? How can we increase access to nature? How can we improve enjoyment of nature as well? As you can see, I won't go through the list now, but the guidance sets out the structure that our strategy has to cover. And we're hoping that by July 25 we'll have a final strategy in place. The point then that it goes to the Secretary of State for approval. The guidance, as I say, sets out key steps we have to follow in developing the strategy. Currently, we're in steps 1 and 3. We're kind of gathering the evidence, gathering the data, the information, etc., to create draft habitat maps, which we saw a moment ago, long lists of important species, kind of long descriptions of the area, etc. And Paul will go through some of that in a bit more detail in a moment. As I said earlier, we need to think beyond the administrative boundaries. As I'm sure you all are well aware, nature doesn't stop at a political boundary. It has its own boundaries and so on. So we are required, again, under the regulations, and we would want to do this anyway, to work with neighbouring local authorities, so Warwickshire, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Lincolnshire, etc. So we'll be looking at where nature crosses borders, how can we work together to maximise the recovery and protection and improvement of nature across those areas. Right, last slide from me then. So how will the local nature recovery strategy be delivered? So again, as part of the kind of policies and legislation and regulations, the government have launched various other schemes and funding mechanisms to make delivery happen on the ground. I'm sure some of you have heard about biodiversity net gain, so the whole 10% net gain on any new development. So the intention is that funding will be used to fund the work on the ground to recover nature, and biodiversity net gain is part of the local planning system, and local plans are required to take account of local nature recovery strategies in deciding the local plan of where BNG should best happen. It'll take about 5 or so years to walk through the system, because obviously local plans already exist, and over the next year or 2 years you will see the local nature recovery strategies coming online. There's also the Environmental Land Management Scheme, which is a replacement for the Common Agricultural Policy, which will provide funding to farmers and landowners to do community good, so do for nature, for the environment, and so on. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work in practice. We're hoping that will provide funding source as well for delivering on the actions that are set out in the local nature recovery strategy. And there will be a whole range of other grants and funding schemes, as well as private investment. We're told billions, if not trillions of pounds out there, private investment will want to invest in positive action for nature, for the environment, and so on. We need to work out how we get our hands on some of that money. And we're looking at different creative options for that. Okay, I'll pass on to Paul.
Thank you, James. It's fantastic to see and hear about all the incredible work everybody's doing. The local nature recovery strategies really aimed to coordinate future efforts, to have a bigger, more joined-up impact for nature. So right now, lots of projects and incredible initiatives often end at the border or the boundary of that project. But through partnerships, lots of partnerships working to provide strategic guidance on where and how to recover nature across Leicestershire and City and Rutland. So when we talk about the LNRS being inclusive and achievable, flexible, ambitious and renewable, we're talking about everybody who's involved in this, the land managers, the farmers, local governments, conservation groups, community groups, should all be able to get involved and deliver measures which contribute to nature's recovery. So what they don't do is, or what they're not at the moment, is they're not delivery plans. This is a strategy, it's overarching, and lots of plans will fit underneath the umbrella of the local nature recovery strategy. They don't put red lines on maps. I don't will map areas for nature's recovery. They're reflecting their local decisions. We want to create nature or improve nature's recovery across the whole of the strategy area, but there will be strategic areas where we recommend that action takes place. They don't prevent the use of land or changes in land use. They don't grant permissions, and they are non-binding, which is super important. Why we need everybody to collaborate on this and get behind this. So why we're developing it, you probably see these stats all the time, it's all over the news and it has been for a long time, and I'm very pleased to see that. Well, biodiversity is declining, while there are winners and losers. Since the 1970s, wildlife species have declined by 41%, 50% of species in the UK are assessed as threatened and going extinct in Great Britain. So 133 species have already become extinct, and I can't name them all because once they're gone, they're forgotten. We don't want that to happen anymore. And the climate's changing. So I just pulled up the climate review from last year. 8 of the last 12 months last year were warmer than average, but the summer months were cooler and wetter. June was actually the hottest June on record since 1839. and going forwards we expect to exceed or match these temperatures in 33% of the years. We know the impact it's having on farming, we know the impact it's having on services, planning and design, everything everyone's doing here today, are having to think about combating climate change. Why is that a problem? Well, we're a growing population, we have increasing demand, we all want housing, food, water, jobs, services, safety and security, and everybody's under increasing pressure to deliver that. And everybody should be able to access that, but it's the environment that gets the brunt of the actions. And that's what's resulting in the biodiversity decline, and ultimately these ecosystem services are being weakened. We're seeing more and more flooding, carbon emissions are rising, and the primary drivers are, habitat loss and overexploitation, climate change now, pollution and invasive species. Every sector has its own priorities and targets to meet, and the local nature recovery strategy wants to consider those and factor all of that in. We know, speaking to others, if people have more time, more money, more resources, more space, they will do more for nature, but that's not really possible. And at the moment, we're taking whiteboard coordinated responses, incredible things are happening, but we're doing it all individually. And the local nature recovery strategy wants to link all everybody together and give strategic direction. So we propose that for non-coordinated response. We're already talking with the NFU, with the CLA, the Environment Agency, Natural England, all of the local boroughs, the councils, our partners and neighbouring authorities in developing this. Now we want to get out to a wider audience. We want to develop partnerships going forward. We don't have an LMP, but we want a partnership with Leicestershire City and London, which provides access to the knowledge, skills, funding, resources that everybody needs to deliver nature recovery. We're going to map the most important areas for biodiversity and show people where those areas are. And we're going to tell people what actions we need to see happen, so we have a landscape joint approach to saving nature. We'll identify nature-based solutions and propose local measures, and we just want to focus on the local. We want things that people can do here in our strategy area, which will not just help us with local targets, but contribute to the national targets as well. We know we can't solve the world's problems all here in Leicestershire and London, but by doing it together, we can start to have a bigger impact. So how you can influence the strategy? Our official go-live date is the 20th, but we're going live now because we've got our banners in place for us. If I could ask everybody to visit the stand today, just take a leaflet. We have a QR code on the website. We've got surveys going out for next week, so a key partner survey, which is going to go to the main groups who will be key in delivering this, and a more residential survey to get a feel of what's important to people and what they want to see happen across the strategy area. So take as many as you want and share them, please. It will be great to get as many views as we possibly can. And then running until July, we're going to be setting up workshops, webinars, roadshows, and we're going to be visiting all the boroughs. We're going to go to as many events as we can to talk more and more about this as we're producing more and more information. So what we'd like to find out from people are where Action for Nature is happening or being planned to happen, where housing or developments might be happening or being planned, where nature-based solutions could solve a local problem, flooding always jumps to mind here, and where land might be available for biodiversity net gain. And equally, where you require better access to reach nature. On the map here, I've dropped a few yellow stars. All of those other plots are the most important areas for nature we currently have. So those are the nature reserves, triple SIs, irreplaceable habitats. There's lots of white on there. We want to join that up. And then with our key partners, we want to know what the priorities and objectives are. See, with the land management, just for the examples I've got here, housing and development, local environmental, health and well-being. If we have a long list of priorities, we can work together and identify priorities which will be work through the LNRS, National Environmental Objectives, but everybody will be able to deliver them alongside their current targets and objectives. I won't run through the process and timeline, other than to say that everybody will have a chance to consult and engage on the different aspects of this from now to July, showing people our local habitat map and areas that could become of importance, feeding into our area description and the narrative behind this strategy, and agreeing the species, the habitats and priorities which we want to focus on as a cooperative. This will go through an approval timeline, starting in the end of September, October, where it goes to supporting authorities and neighbouring RAs. But in January and February, there will be another 8-week public consultation with the final strategy, hopefully being signed off in July 2025, and we'll be publishing from there. So thank you. Please support us. It's our first event. Please come and take some leaflets. Over the next few months, we'll have lots more to tell you.
Thank you. I'm sure there's probably a couple of questions that I'm going to throw at the festival. Great what you're doing, first of all, and it's delighted you've been able to launch it here today, a few weeks ahead of the official launch. Just being able to reach a large audience in one go. This is what the World Conference is all about, and the timing was good for us and good for you. So, massive thank you to bringing the date forward in order to allow us to feature it today. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. It's very, we understand what you're trying to do, it's really good what you're trying to do, we're fully supported. In terms of how it actually works and fits in, you can't change land use, which is fine, but you can have an input into planning applications and how I'm reading it. So if a planning application comes in, are you able, like Charnwood Forest, for instance, they can, and if they see a planning application, they can be comments into it, but they're not a strategy consultant. So does this work like that, where if you see a planning application, you can read into it, or not, or you just don't get involved in the planning system?
We do, but it's a strategy. So the local nature recovery strategy is a mandatory spatial strategy for the area, and all the local plans within that area have to take account of the local nature recovery strategy in developing its local plan. So the local nature recovery strategy is built into the local planning system from the start, not at the development end. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all development will need to meet biodiversity net gain requirements. So within the biodiversity net gain system, if a development happens in an area, the recovery strategy identifies as a priority area, the developer will get extra credits for doing good within that area. Okay, so the system is skewed positively to encourage good action to take place within the priority areas for nature recovery. So hopefully that will speed up the process. So built it into the planning system going forward.
Thank you. So the 7 districts we talk about, and the county and the city, feeding into their local plans, is the aim for them to be all, they're going to be mostly replicated, I would imagine, but is the aim to be streamlined completely, or is there an option to tweak them slightly because of the different areas and the different topography and the different nature?
So the regulations state that local plans must take account of the local nature recovery strategy in their development. So it will be up to each local planning area to decide how they do that within their local plan. And it will only be through trial and error practice and whatever else, we'll see how it will materialise in real life. So there's no prescriptive solution, it's up to the local planning authorities to best decide how they want to do that.
When we are doing this ecological modelling, we're suggesting that we take different approaches for rural and urban landscapes, and then when we come to repriorities and measures, then we'll have overarching ones most likely, but also more local ones, like you say, that different districts look very different and different landscapes, so there'll be people who talk about trees, there'll be something for everybody that will work for that.
So in terms of biodiversity net gain, simple to understand for an individual site where you're looking to keep maximum lost lots. But if it's a site that biodiversity is lost and there is no gain, is there the ability in this to have kind of offsetting so that you can offset that on a different site?
Yeah, so that's within the biodiversity net gain system. So the government has decided to open up the biodiversity net gain system to a free market system. So the value of the biodiversity credits will be determined by the market. So the theory is that if you deliver the biodiversity net gain on the same site that you're building the houses, you will pay a lower price than if you want to do it even in the field next door. You'll pay a slightly higher price in that field. If they're going to go 20 miles away, you pay a higher price. So the closer you do to get net gain to where you're doing development, you will pay a lower price for each of the credits So that's the unknown here. How is the market forces going to work out with where it's going to happen?
So I'm formally writing this now, we've just come into very early towards that now, for instance, a very important part of the world for tourism, for leisure recreation and well-being and solace and all that kind of stuff. But there's some really exciting opportunities there for them, then, isn't there? Because they've got a huge canopy for potentially dealing with some of the issues you talk about.
So sites and landowners can offer up their land as a biodiversity in sites, and they will go on a register, national register. But you've got to meet set criteria and realise that if you do offer your site up for biodiversity gain, it has to be maintained for 30 years in order to be eligible. The links with that. There's pluses and minuses. It doesn't come from free lunch. But if you've got land that you're not using for food or whatever else, but you want to do some good for nature on there, you want to get paid for 20 years to do it, then essentially it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Using the Ashton Canal as an example, when you were here today, we've got a captive audience at the back of the owners. So they could potentially offer biodiversity again on site here as well, too, potentially.
Yes, potentially, yes. So individual landowners can offer up their part of their land, but then no guarantees that the land get picked, you know what I mean? So the developer will have to work out it.
And any questions on the audience? Carol?
Isn't it also a priority to make sure you've got sufficient green corridors so that you don't end up with isolated habitats? Will you be prioritising that as part of
So at the moment we've mapped what's already there, and mapped it in terms of relative importance of your triple SIs and your nature reserves and wildlife sites. So we will be using what's called modelling systems to work out where the opportunities to protect, enhance, expand, recover nature. And it's likely to end up with corridors. There's different types of corridors. You've got linear corridors, stepping stone corridors, and buffer systems and all this kind of stuff. So we'll use the evidence, the science, the experts to inform where best can action be taken to, say, connect, improve, protect, and recover nature, yes.
This is a practical question, which I may be more than you, Martin. Is that indefinitely we have a large commercial development which has got permission, and part of it is a huge biodiversity area set out for replacing the huge amount of biodiversity they've already taken out. Unfortunately, they developed 1/3 of the site. Market forces have changed, so the other 2/3 of the site is fallow, but with all the trees taken out and the biodiversity taken out, and they inform us that they will attend to the new biodiversity area once they've built this extra 2/3, and that's probably 3 or 4 years down the line, and it'll be probably a couple more years before they do the biodiversity. Is there any way that the Borough Council can speed up that kind of process and put the pressure on them? Because we're saying, why don't we have from our point of view, why don't we put the biodiversity area in now? And they turn around and say, well, it's not commercially viable for us to do it until we build the extra units.
We've seen this often in the planning system, not just large development, but also housing estates. I'll take that offline and have a conversation with you about that. And the question of the council to deliver what should be delivered at the end stage. But we'll take that offline. Thank you for the question. Rob?
Yeah, thanks very much for that presentation. There's a lot in there we have to get into in a short period of time. I'm in some ways a little bit uncomfortable, and I know it's not the order of the term recovery strategy, because there's a presumption that has already been damaged to the river. So how does the strategy address things that aren't damaged, that are extremely vulnerable? Are those being looked at? Is there a measure? Is there money or some cost, if you like, or a benefit to actually protecting vulnerable things?
So this is what we follow. So yes, you don't get recovery strategy is like on a landscape scale, not the individual sites. So the first priority is to protect what's already there. That is the first priority. That's why we're mapping those areas. But what we want to do is expand them and connect them and grow them and have more of them. The sad reality is the UK is one of the most nation-depleted countries in the world, and Leicestershire is one of the most nation-depleted areas in the UK. That is the sad reality if you look at the actual facts and figures. So, unfortunately, that has been damaged and harm done. That's not to say this isn't pockets where it's, protected for whatever reason and wonderful, but we need to protect those, expand those, grow them, connect them, and so on.
And just to talk about those other sort of habitats and species, the work that we're doing, we're identifying species and habitats which are obviously very important, very endangered, but other ones which are locally important for us as well. It might not be national or globally, but which is really important here. So based on your point as well, when we're looking at these areas of importance, nature reserve, triple SI, and we want to expand those. Talk about those being like from the heart and lungs, we're looking at lots of biodiversity, but we need to link those together through the arteries, through hedgerows, through highways, through canals, through river networks, which might not declare triple SI status, they might not be biodiversity, really, really strong, but they connect everything up and they allow nature to thrive and move more efficiently around the area. So all areas are going to be important to be addressed.
Thanks. I mean, you do a great job, and I really appreciate the work you do. And it's great that you've also actually put forward this 10% biodiversity game. But the policy you have, or will be having, will not protect you against planning applications. So at the moment, without a 5-year housing supply, a local plan, we're still susceptible. I mean, we could argue that point about biodiversity is recently at the big. But the inspector said, the tilted balance, if you have a 5-year housing supply or a local planning policy, he granted it. And we've got so much biodiversity on that particular area plan.
What we're hoping to do, so we're taking the floor here, obviously. So through the groups that we're creating, our key partners, we want to create beyond the solutions, a local group, strategy group, whatever that might be. And on that, sit planners, developers, landowners, farmers, councillors, and environmental groups. And we'll come to a point, and the vision is that when we've written a strategy, we have a video where everybody shoulder to shoulder say we endorse this because we agree priorities of ways to do the development, ways to farm, that we all support and weave in nature recovery, whatever nature recovery looks like for our strategy area. And this is a reviewable strategy, so every 5 years it gets reviewed, we take on new data, we look at new plans, new projects, we put that back to the model and say what do we do next, what do we learn. So this could go on hopefully hundreds of years, bouncing back. Take everybody's point of view. That's why we want the developers and the planners to agree with us making these decisions.
Thank you. Just one more.
Sorry, it's a really quick one actually. I think there's an opportunity here. Personally, I think this is absolutely right, and we need to do more of this. But when you're going to go to your community survey, I think there's value in being able to make sure that we as parish councils can then get access to that. So for example, Sheep's got its own plan, right? So the next step, we've already got quite a lot in that neighbourhood plan, but we need to understand what our community wants to see in the future. So I think if we can just consider that, to make sure we can get access to that information, that will help us inform what our community wants and then use that as a basis, rather than us going and asking the same questions again. So it's supposed to be a bit of an asking, a bit of a plea and an observation, really.
So on the 11th of April, an invite's gone out to all parishes and councils for a webinar. There's a meeting already in place, which we're talking on. So that's coming out to our County Council's community group, Green and Donna are sending those invites out shortly, but we will put on additional ones. So that's happening very soon.
Perfect, thank you.
Martin, I've got a very quick question. It's probably just a point of clarification, really. It's the bit about the biodiversity net gain on a planning development, the 10% if it's in the development, and you talked about there's a price for that. Then you said there's a price if it's next door to it, and then you said there's a price if it's 20 miles away. Who pays the price and what is the price? That's a bit I don't understand.
The developer will pay the price.
The developer
will pay.
To the landowner?
I suppose ultimately gets to the landlord, so the developer will have to buy the biodiversity credits to allow it to fund the biodiversity gain that happen on the land that they want to see.
So the more diversity they put in during that application, the more likely their applications to succeed?
No. So at the last minute, the government changed the wording of the legislation. So the previous draft wording was that net gain was a minimum. They've changed it now that net gain, sorry, 10% was a minimum. They've now changed it 10% is a maximum. It's a bit sneaky. I got my colleagues talking about appeals and so on. Some councils, so biodiversity net gain only came into force on the 12th of February, something like that. So some councils went ahead and started introducing biodiversity net gain before this, and had asked for 20% net gain. But now they're getting refused to do that because it's too much innovation. So Aussie's right in raising some concerns. We don't really know how this is totally going to work in practice. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of lobbying going on of different vested interests about, you know, who wants what. So we will have to see how it works in practice. But the basic principle is the developer will have to pay less if they do the net gain on the same land that they're developing the houses or the factory, whatever it might be. And the further you are away from that site, you will pay more. But as I said, the government have opened up the value of that to the market forces to decide.
Right.
So, thank you both. When I walked in this morning, one that led me to
I think it should stay where it is. But it's no use, if you're in here, this is all development, the environment versus net gain is 50 miles away, that's not how the people live here. It wants to be contained in the side of its development. Once this so-called market force is making in Brazil for a moment, it's going to benefit you here.
Yeah.
Just on, be very quick, just on the BMD, this is international and the local energy recovery strategy, where we're looking locally. It can be delivered in other ways, not just through BMD. There are other schemes, grants, and other ways of delivering this work. So BMD has gone at the same time as can promote this and really deliver this, but it's not the be all and all to stop this from working.
When I walked in this morning, the first thing I noticed was your photo, and it makes you want to read it, which is a fantastic start. It's been really interesting learning what you've got to say today. It's a very start of a journey, and one that goes on in perpetuity. And as you say, it's refreshed. It's a very small team, and there's a lot of work to do. So please give our thanks to all the team that's working on this, because actually, although some of it we might not like, is that we'll be in a better place than we are now. And that this is changing the outlook, and not fixing everything in one go. So thank you for coming today. I know you're going to be over lunch, you've got the full hour there. A lot of people probably got resident questions to ask you. So it'd be great that you're there for that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving us an insight into the start and having us out to your launch event effectively. It's not a lot of time to run. There's a lot of work to do with very few people. So well done.
Thank you.
Another really valuable partner in College Campus investor, share. Dave, would you come join me about College Campus investors? More importantly, volunteering, promoting opportunities. It's all sorted on post-pandemic because lots of it's good to see you.
So as Michael said, I'm Dave from Contracts in Lancashire. We'll talk a little bit about volunteering locally, and then go on to the volunteering nationally, what's happening in that national picture. So a bit of background on VAL. So we're the Accredited Volunteer Centre for Leicester and Leicestershire, accredited by NAVCA, and we've been accredited for a number of years. Offering support to organisations that are looking to involve volunteers. We're also offering advice and support to the public to get involved, and working with sort of local partners like RCC and others, just to find ways to open those doors. And wider support with communities as well around things like funding, sort of bringing people together to collaborate and looking at sort of different ways to work together. So I'm going to start firstly kind of looking at the national picture with our volunteering strategy, and we've drawn this sort of based on local intelligence. It's been used for our own internal volunteering, and then we've been taking this out over the last couple of years with our wider work in local communities. I think as Martin was saying, we've seen sort of big sort of shifts with COVID-19, and it led to a focus very much more on kind of needs of communities rather than that choice of volunteers. And what we've seen is very much a demand on volunteer time, and that's led to very much a sense of volunteer fatigue, big challenges for services to continue. And so sort of nationally, there's been a lot of work sort of looking at action planning and what can we do collectively just to bring people together and keep people involved. So what we found is some volunteers did stop in the pandemic when we went into lockdown, so the kind of the usual cohorts of volunteers perhaps had to stop because they were shielding, they couldn't get involved in kind of the community projects they normally would do, and some of those haven't come back, unfortunately. We've also seen a change in the areas of interest for volunteers, and quite interestingly, we've seen a massive interest in kind of the outdoors, nature and conservation, which is really encouraging to see. And I think because when we were in lockdown, it was the one thing that people could do, that 1 hour a day go for a walk, so people were really keen just to sort of keep that involvement and perhaps found things in their local area they didn't know were there. We've seen an increased interest in micro-volunteering, and that's kind of small, bite-sized activities. I've been talking to a lot of people today, and micro-volunteering coming up more and more. What we've seen is that people really want something different now, so do we need to adapt and sort of keep that volunteering evolving? So this brings me on to the national vision for volunteering, and this is a national partnership looking at kind of different areas of volunteering. How do we kind of keep people involved, and perhaps what do we need to change? These key areas are sort of looking at awareness and appreciation, sort of power dynamics, equality and inclusion, collaboration and experimentation. And because we're short on time, we'll just talk about a few of these sort of key areas in a bit more detail. So this idea of power and collaboration, I think, again, so going back to COVID, we saw a change in that power dynamic. So we've got to think about that informal volunteering. We did see a lot of people get involved in kind of local groups and local actions. So it's thinking, how do we sort of recognise that and take it forward? As I say, this point about choice for volunteers is always really key. We've got to think about giving people that choice and that power to sort of get involved in the ways that they're wanting to. And that really does mean a negotiation between community needs and that choice for those volunteers. But also that all of us need to work together to promote volunteering and continue to support our communities and understand what are the key needs. Thinking a little bit about equity and inclusion, there's been a lot of discussions about how do we bring kind of more diverse groups on board and how do we engage people that perhaps haven't got involved as much in volunteering, or could be new groups and new opportunities. So there's been a lot of talk about younger people and sort of getting involved in new ways and kind of opening up doors. There can be a lot of barriers involving younger people, so how do we open kind of up those opportunities? Think about people with disabilities and learning disabilities. Can we help them overcome barriers and again open up some of those doors? It could be people from lower socio-economic groups, and perhaps sometimes they feel they don't have the time or haven't got kind of doors open for them to get involved. Kind of more ethnically diverse communities and nationalities, and kind of linked to that, refugees and asylum seekers. We've seen a lot of people sort of coming over in recent years, a lot of people in our local communities. How can we involve them and kind of make it easier for them to connect with local communities? And very relevant to sort of today's conference, how do we get people from more rural communities involved? You're kind of thinking about opportunities on their doorstep, but also what are their interests and how can they kind of open up opportunities in neighbouring communities and sort of build up those wider connections. And one area we've been particularly focusing on in sort of Leicester and Leicestershire over the last sort of 18 months is this idea of experimentation. We found in COVID that we were needing to kind of throw out some of that red tape and just get people mobilised and involved in different ways. And how do we take some of that learning forward for the future? So we've been talking to a lot of organisations locally about sort of trying new ways to involve volunteers. It could be thinking about your organisational cause, rather than having very prescriptive role descriptions, and you open up kind of different doors and avenues for people to get involved based on their skills and experience that they can offer you, rather than that ask. It's from working with different groups of people, and as I was saying, there's kind of lists of different kind of demographics we could be targeting. Looking to offer more flexibility where possible. It's not always possible. You may be looking at roles where you need people a particular day, on particular days or at particular times. That's when your activities take place. But can we think more about micro-volunteering and different ways to get people involved? kind of more the working population, can there be things that we can do and really to involve families? And so the key question here is how do we have those conversations around experimenting? It does mean change, it does mean throwing out some of that red tape, changing policies and procedures, and that can be a concern for all of us. And biggie, how do we ensure that people aren't exploited? That was another concern sort of during the pandemic. Some of the things that people could be asked to do and asked to get involved in, was it sort of too far? And was it sort of taking that ask too far? So that's just to give a bit of the background on that national picture. And I've got some key questions to ask yourself. This is the kind of things that we take to kind of people that are looking to get involved as volunteers. So what kind of opportunities would you be interested in? What would appeal? What can people sort of get from volunteering with you? And why should volunteers connect with you as organisations and communities? What is the makeup of your current volunteer base? Have you got people in sort of particular genders, particular age groups, particular diversities? Are you looking at a certain geography? How can volunteers get to your venues? Would they be sort of walking to you, travelling by bus, travelling by car sharing? And how are you sharing information about volunteering within your organisations and that wider community? And there's lots of different ways to do that, and you're all going to have different channels. How do you make the most of those, really? We as well, we've got our own volunteering website that's dedicated to Leicester and Leicestershire. It's free for people to sign up to use, and we can show you in the break how you can get involved in that if you haven't already. But please take a look at that. And just include some of our contact details. We're more than happy to work with any organisations looking for support. If you are working with volunteers and want to kind of look at some of the best practice, explore this whole idea of vision for volunteering and some of these new ideas that could be taken forward, more than happy to have a conversation. Oh, gone too far then. But thank you very much.
You touched upon some very difficult things there because of obviously volunteering. Now there's two types of volunteering really, and there's a lot of people in this room today that this will resonate with, not least Councillor Shea sat at the front there. Recently we had a serious emergency in Rugby, National News, and people pulled together very quickly and people were volunteering and all the agencies come together, but volunteers come together and make a real difference. What we're talking about here is trying to recruit volunteers like Leicester Free Church, but keep them long term. And it's this churn, if you like, or finding the new recruits as people drop out of the volunteering sector to replace those thoughts that have gone previously. And it is a massive challenge. So it was great with the workshop you did, and I know we've got a stall there for people to ask questions and seek advice. So please take the opportunity to do so, because I know we're all facing challenges of keeping and retaining volunteers and keeping them motivated and doing all the good work they do. Because you wouldn't be bankrupt with that, quite frankly. I mean, when you look at individual acts of selfishness, just from looking after your neighbour to get the shopping, to volunteering on a larger scale, to keeping the community that we represent clean and tidy by litter picking. Or, I mean, we could talk the rest of that. Thank you very much for joining us today and giving us insight into your work, but more importantly, knowledge to how to those precious people we managed to get to help us, how we can work together in order to try and maintain keeping them active.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
And before we close, we've got another interesting agenda item. Philippa, would you join me to talk about the role of affordable housing? We've met many times. It's great to see you.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I promise we won't keep you all too long. I can hear the stomach rumbling as I'm champagne in the door there. So, as Martin said, I'm Phil McKenna. I'm from an organisation called Midlands Rural Housing. Many of you may already be familiar with us. For those who are not so familiar, we're part of the wider East Midlands Housing Group, based in Colwell, so just up the road there, which is the next one, Martin. This one's going. This one's not going.
That one's taking the screens.
Right, okay.
This one's mine. and that was just, wait, did you want to go back to the beginning? Back at the beginning. If you go that way, we'll go to your next slide.
Okay, I'm not a technology person, as you've probably gathered. So anyway, that's who I am. So who are we? So Midlands Rural Housing was a very small, very perfectly formed and very unique organisation. We've got 24 staff, one office space, which is sort of more or less open since COVID, because now we all work from home. Our primary location for operational duties is the East Midlands, but we will go anywhere across the country for a fee, or depends on how much I like it, it depends. We own and manage around 1,800 homes in rural locations across the East Midlands. We have 4 rural housing associations that Midlands Rural provide management services to. So we have Leicestershire Rural, which some of you may already know. That's our only registered provider that doesn't own its own stock, we're purely a managing agent for others. We have Peak District Rural, obviously based in the Peak District, Warwickshire Rural, and also, who's the other one? Thank you, Northamptonshire, yeah. But we work with many local authority partners across the Midlands. And over the years, we have actively engaged, it says 300 plus there, it's more like 400 plus now, villages in rural locations with our enabling work and our development services to get new homes built in rural communities for local people. So, rural housing enabling is the crux of what we do. Our consultancy services are offered to anybody who's got an interest in developing rural housing in rural communities. Since 2010 until last year, we were the procured strategic enabler for the Leicestershire Rural Housing Group. I think it was the Borough Council, a fantastic partner in that. That partnership did come to an end last year. Unfortunately, funding wasn't available to carry that forward. So that did end, but as I'll come to in a moment, we're still very much actively involved. We also provide enabling support for parish councils, neighbourhood plan groups, local communities, landowners, planning agents, a whole raft of partners there. And we carry out rural housing training and briefing from officers, elected members, anybody who really wants to learn a bit more about rural housing. It's very different operating in rural areas than urban areas because people who live in rural communities are really up against it. So to buy a property in a rural area will cost you 20% more than it will cost to buy a comparable property in an urban area. And what happens then? People tend to migrate away, they move out, they leave their home village, and that leads to services being lost. Villages lose that sustainability that they previously enjoyed. Pubs, shops, schools close. You know, it's this picture that we see right the way across the country. Which is very sad because it means that rural communities just lose their heart. Wages in rural areas typically very low. A lot of the work tends to be seasonal work, based around tourism, farming, that sort of thing. So salaries are lower. So again, people can't really afford to get onto the property ladder. Homelessness is off the chart now in rural areas. It's growing all the time. That's not just homelessness, that's visible that we see. It's also the hidden homelessness as well. So people living with friends, people living with families, people camping out in tents on farmland. It really is a growing problem. And we've got well over 1 million people on council housing waiting lists who are looking for housing just in rural areas. So, you know, it's massive, it's a real problem. But we have great news. It's not very often that we get to thank the government for something, but we've got a reason to thank them now. So DEFRA announced their funding programme last summer for rural housing enabling services. And they've given a £2.5 million pot to organisations who are members of an association called ACA. Our main funder for Leicestershire is Kevin back there. So Kevin from the RCC and Sam submitted a successful bid to DEFRA for a slice of that funding and were awarded a nice healthy chunk of that. So they employ us to provide those enabling services for them. And what that means is that all of the partnership working that we've done since 2010 in Leicestershire can be resurrected. All of those parts can be brought back together. We've got new partners coming around the table as well. So we can get cracking now on working with rural communities, local parish councils, coming back out to you all now to make the case for rural affordable housing and getting some off the ground. We've also had successful bids with Support Staffordshire, Rural Action Derbyshire and Northamptonshire ACA as well. So we've got a really busy year coming ahead of us. The funding unfortunately is time limited. It is only available until the end of March next year. But what we're hoping is that the partners who are coming to work together will really see the value in these new partnerships and that we will have achieved a lot in the next year. We've got a really healthy pipeline to go at. So hopefully people will see that there's value there and they'll continue that. And maybe, you know, we might even get some continued funding, general election later this year, who knows. But for the moment, it's absolutely fantastic news and we're really happy about it. So this slide just sort of explains how the enabling process works really, and I'll just go on and talk about a couple of those. So historically, when we work with Leicestershire, we would agree a 5-year-wide survey programme, and we will still do that, but obviously it won't be a 5-year programme, it will be much smaller. So we'll be targeting the areas where we already know that there's a housing need, and then plug in any gaps with a few housing needs surveys in other locations where we think there might be a need, but we're not quite sure yet. We'll then be coming out to speak to parish councillors. Parish councillors, can you put your hands up please if you've got any in the room today? No problem. Yeah. I cannot stress how important you are and the role that you play in bringing together people in rural communities to allow us to do what we do. You really are. You know, you're amazing and we really need you. We can't do it without you. So if you get an email from me saying we're going to be doing a housing needs survey in your parish and would you like me to come and talk to the public about it, please say yes. Please give us your support. At least in that, you know, you might not agree with everything that we have to say, but please give us that initial support because it's so important that your communities get the housing that they need. We will then come and speak to communities. They will be fully involved. You know, if we find a land opportunity or we're looking to work with a developer or a housing association, anybody who might have an opportunity, you might have land allocated in your neighbourhood plans that you're thinking of letting somebody take forward for affordable housing, you will be involved in that, as will the local residents, at every single step of the way, basically, until those homes are built and the keys are handed out to the new tenants. We will all be people from your local village. We don't offer out to people from outside because we build homes on rural exception sites, so we're not allowed to do that. And the homes are held in perpetuity as well, so they're always on a constant cycle of going to people in your local villages and not from outside. And that really helps you to protect your parish as well and to make sure that what is built stays for people in your parish. And it stops the big guys coming in, buying more pieces of land that can be used for other purposes and using it to build large market homes which can then be sold to anybody, used as second homes, you know, all of the things that, you know, it's all very well having different people who can contribute to the economy and help your parish to stay strong, but we really do need to start local first and keep things local as far as we can. So then we look at bringing in other delivery partners, so we will find a registered provider that we really like, who we want to work with to bring homes to fruition. We'll help you to look at the sites, we can help you to unlock funding. There's so many things that we can do. But throughout it all, the community is constantly consulting, so we're keeping people's hearts and minds on the job, making sure that we're doing what people want. And then the end game is to deliver those affordable homes in places where people really need them. I won't go into that one. I did say about rural exception sites. For people who don't know what rural exception sites are, they're developments that are built on land that is not normally used for housing. So usually very small plots of land that tend to sit right on the outskirts of the envelope of the village. Always been built, not been used before, so we look for a very small site. We obviously identify the need, and that sort of shapes what gets built, how many homes, the size, the type, that sort of all sets that out there. We also make sure that we do a very strong Section 106 agreement, which again, the community are involved in, parish councils are involved in, and that sets out who can be allocated homes. If we haven't got any local people, who do we look to next? You know, that's a very important document to make sure that that's drawn up with themselves to avoid it just sort of being a free-for-all on the open market. The community again is involved at all times, and I've got a really good guide that I'll ask Kat if we can send a link round to all of the parish councils. It's a new guide that we did last year in partnership with the Royal Housing Alliance. It's great for parish councillors and for anybody really who's interested in it. Got lots of case studies in there, great examples of what we've done elsewhere, what's worked, what hasn't worked so well, why those things haven't worked so well.
Very shortly. Yeah,
Okay, I think we're about there. I'm about there, we've done. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to throw them up now, or you can catch me this afternoon. I'm going to be around for this afternoon. Entirely up to you, Simon. Hello.
The biggest problem when you get rural houses in the village is consulting the general public in the area.
There's somebody what, sorry?
Consulting the people in the area.
Yeah.
The biggest comment you get, you don't want those sort of people living near us.
Yeah.
And it's a hell of a problem, and there's one near me only a couple of years, and the grounds out in that village, split the village into that village.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of that problem?
It does happen.
They're not necessarily any different to anybody else.
This is true, and what I always say to people, the people who are going to be living in the houses, they're your parents, your children, your grandchildren, your brothers, your sisters, they are already people who are part of your community. Rural exception sites are not about bringing in people from other areas, they're about housing the people who are local.
I know that, but it's convincing the other people living in the area, you don't want to drags out the less schools.
Yeah, and it's about going out there, consulting with those people, putting those fears to rest, because they're very valid fears. When we do a survey, there's always a really comprehensive letter that goes through and explains things. We've generally been to the parish council meeting and spoken to the public as well. We've publicised that survey, we're very keen on getting out there and actually speaking to people, so we can put those things to rest really. You're absolutely right, it is a real problem.
And again, this is really the whole idea is to try and tackle some of the challenges, but obviously it's a difficult time that we walk, I understand that. Thank you for coming to see us today and having your talk. So we're about to break for lunch, and we've got a full hour to ask you more questions if you like. Sadly, we're going to have time to ask you more questions within the main conference today, but you've got a great start out there. So it's lovely to see you again, and I'll see you everyone.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, you have reached that time, it's lunchtime. How this is actually going to work is a really simple process. So how lunch is actually going to work is a really simple process. What I'd like you to do is a buffet laid on by my farm caterers, as I say, award-winning catering company, both the chef and the staff. They're going to showcase what they can do, just a tiny sample. I bet it's going to be a good sample, I hope you enjoy it. Actually lunch break, but it's a working break too, because we've got 21 stands, all of which are keen and eager to give you information, answer your questions, help you with your help and advice. That's what today's all about. So please take a break, but also take time to talk to one another, network with one another. There's been a lot of that going on today. It really pleases me to see that. Enjoy some food, whilst at the same time visiting stands that have gone to a really big amount of trouble to set up for you today, and we're very grateful for that. Just before I say, because not everybody's coming back this afternoon, I just want to take the opportunity to encompass a number of thank yous in one go, so we're not constantly clapping for each other. But thank you to all our speakers this morning and for all of the for all of the agenda items. Thank you for all the questions that have been posed to different speakers. And thank you to you for listening and hoping you got something out of it. Thank you enormously to Dan at the back, who's been doing all the IT for us. It is the Adventurous that Joe talked about. And Joe, they've done a great job for us, I hope you'll agree. So I just want to thank all of those ahead of people not coming back this afternoon. Some people won't, and some other people will join us. But, like I said at the start, if you can stay for the afternoon as well and get the whole day value, then that would be even better. So look forward to talking to you over lunch, because that's what I do. Enjoy your lunch, enjoy the stands, and thank you for this morning's event.